Hello everyone. In this demo, you're gonna see the demonstration of the Versa SD-WAN platform. So first of all, a few words about our topology. The topology will consist of head-end, branch 1, branch 2, and the third location, site 3, which will be comprised of two devices, branch 31 and 32 device, which are in the high available configuration. And also, all the topology will have two independent customers, so there'll be tenant 1 and tenant 2. So we will have host A and host C connected to the tenant 1, and host B and host D will be connected to the tenant 2. This way, we want to show you, first of all, multi-tenancy capabilities of the Versa system. Second of all, they will be located in a different VRFs, so we may have even overlapping IP addresses on the host A and host B, or for example, overlapping IP address on the host C and host D, and they will not know about each other because they are in the separate VRFs. Now, um, all the management of the Versa system is happening through the Versa director. Versa director is the centralizing point of storing all the configuration, all the data, all the statistics, everything. And to access Versa director, we would need to go to the HTTPS with IP address of the Versa director. Actually, we can also go through the CLI and do the same commands as from the Versa GUI, but the most common way of managing system is through the GUI, through the graphical user interface or the web interface. So on the first page, you'll see the list of the devices. Currently, we have 5 devices or 5 Flex VNF devices. Controller, branch 1, branch 2, branch 3.1, 3.2. Branch 3.1 and 3.2 are currently down, so I'm gonna put them up later. And the system shows that they're kind of not reachable. And also in here you can see the software version. You can see the when the service started, how many organizations are there, is the service up or down, what is happening, and so on. But let's first review what we have in the Versa director from the menu standpoint and what do we have here. So first section is the monitor section. In the monitor section, you can see in the real time what is happening on your devices, which are the most accessible or most popular applications that are being used in your network, the state of the tenants, of the controllers, of the events that might have happened in the network, and overall health. And you can see this based on each of the device. But we'll review this menu a little later. Now, second option. So first was monitoring, second is configuration. In the configuration, you will see, first of all, different configurations for multiple tenants. So there might be configuration templates for the tenant Versa. There might be templates for the tenant which is called tenant 1 and for the tenant which is called tenant 2. Also in here, there's going to be a service templates that can be applied into multiple templates. In here, you will also find information about the devices, actual devices that are based on those templates, how we are binding data. Like for example, when you have devices that are based on some template. On the template, there's going to be some variables, and in the device bind data, you can find how exactly which values were assigned to those variables. And in here, you also will find information such as transport domains or WAN networks that can be configured in your network in each of the devices. So this is the second menu. Third menu, workflows. Workflows is nothing else but configuration wizards. So the actual configuration is always stored in the configuration menu, but with the use of workflows menu, you can easily configure and create configurations for the configuration menu. Like for example, if you would want to manually configure device in here, let's say it's a device, your controller, there's going to be tons of information, tons of configuration. Like let's try to download the export configuration. So for example, we're exporting configuration of the controller. Here it is, and here it is. So let's see what's going to be in the configuration of the controller. And the configuration is multiple pages with all the parameters, all the routers, and so on and so forth, with BGP communities, with different virtual routers, VRFs, with redistribution logic, and so on and so forth. So instead of configuring this manually, as in here, we can use the workflows menu, which is basically configuration wizards, where you can configure something easily. Let's say that you want to create a new template that will have configuration uh, of the branch device. And let's say, no, actually, let's take another one. Let's take something like this one. Here, the standalone full mesh. It's already pre-configured workflow, but anyway, so in here, in the menu of workflow, it will ask you what is going to be the organization for the template, what is going to be the analytics cluster, what is going to be the applied license level, what are going to be the sub-organizations. Then the system will ask you about the ports, where should they be assigned, in which priority they should be used, and about the tenant organization with their VRFs, on which LAN ports they're going to be located. Also in here, you can easily configure your BGP, OSPF, or static routes processes, and you can also create some of the values as variables. So when we apply the template to the actual device, we'll need to fill in that variable. For example, we can create pre-configure BGP connection from each device to the LAN side, or for example, to the WAN side, and make AS numbers as a variable, like local AS or and remote AS. And therefore, whenever we deploy this template on the actual device, the system will ask us what is going to be the values for the AS numbers for the local and remote side that you want to apply based on this template. Also from here, it's very easy to configure something like direct internet access. So access split tunnel to the internet, or for example, gateway functionality. And you can configure this manually from each of the VRFs that you want to provide this access from. Also, inbound net. So destination net, if you want to provide access to any of the services to the DMZ located in your LAN network, but you want to provide it from the WAN side. So you can specify from which WAN side you will be listening, to which LAN side is going to be redirected, which protocol and which ports should be redirected where. Next thing, give me a second. So let's deselect this. Continue. Next thing, for example, things like services, DHCP services, that's where we can configure them. That's where we can enable or disable next generation firewalls things, or for example, we can apply the same service template for multiple templates if we want to have the same traffic steering policies or the same quality of service policies across all of our templates. So this is possible using the service templates, and that's exactly where they can be applied. And last thing, we can pre-configure on this template multiple services such as SNMP, TACX integration, syslog server, and so on and so forth. After that, we will click just create, and the system will create the configuration in the configuration menu. And what is going to be created? So currently we just observed the workflow for the branch standalone full mesh. And here's what will be created. Multiple interfaces with the variables. Then there will be created things like, for example, VRFs, multiple VRFs, multiple layers of VRFs, their relationship to each other. If we will have like a customer LAN side VRFs, it will configure route distinguishers, route targets on them, and so on and so forth. So once again, workflows is just the easy way to configure something, like to make a basic default configuration for the first time. But after that, if you would want to make like a granular configuration, if you have knowledge to configure like low-level BGP tuning or OSPF tuning or something on the low level, you can always do this on the configuration. But through the workflow, it is the way to make it easier, maybe not in the super granular way, because, for example, when we configure it or when we can configure in this service template, things like routing, we cannot specify like timers or something. It allows you to create just a basic configuration, such as neighbor IP address, local AS, and remote IP address. But if you want to configure something more granular, it can always be accomplished using the configuration menu. And also from here, you can create the devices based on the templates. So for example, if we add a new device, we'll receive the serial number of that device from the supplier of the equipment. We can assign some kind of template to this device, and based on this template, the system will ask us what should be the values that we should assign. For example, what should be the value of the DNS server that we will give to the clients on the LAN side, or what should be the IP address for the internet side, what should be the IP address for the LAN tenant 1 or LAN tenant 2 or gateway for one or second WAN network. So these all will be assigned using the device workflow menu, and the actual device will be created. Next, so we just reviewed monitoring, configuration, and workflows. Now let's go into the administration. In the administration, this is the menu where we can see the general parameters. Parameters such as all the devices that we have here that are being controlled by the Versa director. Also, we can see information such as syslog integration of the Versa director, analytics clusters. So for example, currently I have only one analytics nodes, that is this one. Yeah, but if I had multiple of them, they can be configured from here. Also, system information such as high availability of the director can be configured here. DNS settings for the Versa director. Information about the licenses that are being used and currently utilized in your system. And for example, things like multi-tenancy where we can configure different users for different organizations. So let's say that we want to configure user for organization tenant 1. Currently we have a couple of users. Let's create something else. So let's say we create a user test recording, full name test. The system doesn't like the dash symbol. Okay, last name recording, and the password, I don't know, something. And test at test.com, and available roles. It's going to be a super admin for this user, and the user is going to be created. And after that, we're going to do this right after I complete the description of the administration section. After that, we will try to log in using test recording user and see what will happen. So anyway, users for the system for multiple and various tenants can be configured in here. Also in here, you can see which users were logged, which unlocked. Here you can see the external integrations with the single sign-on. And also in here, you can see information such as devices that exist in your network. Here's all the devices that were ever seen by this device. If there is any device that will connect to your director and you don't have serial number of the device configured on director, it will be put in the unknown devices. Currently, I don't have any of such devices, but it could be here. If you want to configure any UCP functionality, such as additional VNFs, they can be added from the vendor catalog. And in the images section, there might be images to upgrade the future, the current devices to a next version of the Flex VNF. Okay, so let's get back to the organizational users and to the users that we just created. So I just created the user test for recording. Let's try and see what will be if we will log in using this user to the Versa director. So I will log out. Now, test recording. Okay. And here's what I see from the test recording user. So we can see on the top right side that I have test recording in here. Now, you can see the list of menus is slightly lower. We can see only the devices that we can control something on them. Let's say want to see what's happening on the branch 11 device. In here, if I'll go to the configuration menu, I can configure only the parameters related to this user and that are allowed to configure by the system. For example, this current device is being controlled by the Versa organization, so I almost cannot do any changes except probably some of the QoS settings, some of the DHCP settings, or something that's related to the LAN side. As well as if I will go to the configuration menu, I can only see my tenant on the left, nothing else. I can also create the new templates. I can also create new templates for the workflow, but I can only see what is belonging to this user, this particular user. You know, if I would ever go to any of the devices, if I want to see my devices where they are located, see that currently there are 4 branches. Here's their state. Some of them are in the synchronized config state, some of them are not, and specifically information only related to this user will be viewed on these pages. Now, let's go back and let's see in a little more details what we can do in general for all the users. Okay, as I told you before, let's see a little more details about what we can see in the real time in the monitoring section. So first of all, we can see the state of the Versa director. We can see the size of the partitions. We can see information about the version. We can see information about the different failover times for the high availability if we would have anything configured, and the license they're currently being assigned. So this is demo environment, so my license currently is inactive. Okay, if we want to see something more detailed about, for example, events or critical things that are happening. So in here, we can go and click on this critical, and we can see that branch 31 and branch 2 and appliance state changes, they are down. So these devices consider it as down, and therefore system shows us that this is considered a critical event or critical error. There might be some less obvious mistakes, like for example, major but not critical things. Like for example, we had a connection failure from the branches 31 and 32 because we cannot connect to them once again. If feel okay. And therefore, if we would want to click on any of the devices to see what exactly was happening, how it was happening, and so on, we would be able to do this from this menu. Now, let's see what we can do from the details page. On the details page, we can click on the actual device. Let's say it's a branch 11. In our case, branch 11, let's see where it is. It is in here. So we have internet network. By the way, from this internet network, it also connected to the actual internet, so we can test the connectivity to the internet right away. We have 2 devices connected to the branch 11, host A and host B. Now, in here, we can see in the monitor menu about the branch 11. First of all, the current throughput on the links on the internet and MPLS receive and transmit throughput. In here, we can also see information about the health, about the state, and so on and so forth. And from here, we can also see information about various subtenant of this device. If we want to see something on the branch 11, let's say branch 11 tenant 1 and its services. Currently, services tenant 1 is connected to the branch 21 and controller. Also, if we would want to see something like aggregate traffic state between branch 11 and branch 21, here's where this information is going to be. Right now, there's no throughput between those guys. If we want to see something like SLA path that are toward the branch 21, we can see that currently we have 2 available paths between branch 11 and branch 21 because we've chosen branch 21. And actually, here's these 2 paths, one over the internet, second over MPLS. And it shows you information if everything is good with that state and so on and so forth. Of course, if we would ever want to see something like the current sessions that are going from this branch and currently going to the internet, we can see them in here. One second. And here's currently 3 sessions. So here are 3 sessions. It's YouTube, DNS, and something that's going through this branch to the internet. If we would have any sessions between branches, we'd be able to see this in the SD-WAN menu. Next, all the current translations. So currently it shows that we have 3 translations, and let's see what are those. So we actually have 3 translations between the source IP address 10.10.10.10 to 3 different destinations. Also in here, you'll be able to see any rules that we currently have, like session rules, DOS policies, zone protection, IPS rules, antivirus, and so on and so forth. Currently, almost nothing configured on those devices, so almost nothing is going to be shown in here. But if we would have any rules other than allow everything from trust, we would have much more counters in these menus. Okay, next thing that you can see from the monitor section, you can see the interfaces state. Like for example, the interfaces for their current state, if there is any errors and so on and so forth. You can see also information more detailed about the specific interface, whether you're running DHCP on it or not, what is the MTU, what is the current speed, and more granular information. That's about the interfaces. If you want to see the routes, so you can see different routes in the different VRFs for various IPv4 or IPv6. So let's say you want to see what are the routes in the LAN VR. So here's currently the routes. They're available in there. And in the control VR, this is available. And this way we can see for any, once again, for IPv4 and IPv6, Versa supports both of them. And connection between branches can be also for both of them. And we can do this based on per tenant. So for example, for tenant 2, we have different routing tables, we have different routes, and everything is different in here. So for example, here we can see from the other side, from the site 102, it's branch 22 is actually, we received this route. While from in the tenant 1, we're not receiving those routes. Okay, other things such as BGP connection information. So here we have BGP connection, OSPF connection information if we had any OSPF in any of the VRFs. Currently we don't have any, so that's why it's not showing anything. OSPF v3 BFD configuration, current DHCP state, like for example, the leases that we gave to the client. So currently we've given one lease in to the client in the tenant 2. Also information about the quality of services, if we had anything assigned specifically or any QoS configured in our devices. Information about the VRP, once again on this device currently there is nothing, but it would be shown in here. ARP configuration, like for example, what are the ARP resolutions that we see from the LAN side, we can see them here. Also, if you would want to see more details about the actual device, it can be viewed from the systems menu. So the current load of the system, the memory utilization, CPU utilization, disk utilization, location of this device where it's located, each of the services that are running on the device, their state, the license type, like for example, currently it's subjugated to the Versa director, the NTP connection status, and so on. And the very coolest part is the troubleshooting tools that are available on this device. So if we would want to do some kind of a pinging from this tenant to other side, like for example from the internet or MPLS or using our LAN, we can do this from here. And also we can do the same with a trace route, or we can actually do the TCP dump and see what is happening on the interfaces. Let's say we want to do TCP dump on the VNI00 interface. It's our internet-facing interface, and uh, we want to sniff on that interface for 5 seconds. So we can click Start. The system will enable TCP dump on that interface. It will catch all the packets. Then it will transfer down the capture to the Versa director, and now we have the download button. If we'll click this download button, we'll get the PCAP, which we'll be able to open in the Wireshark and see what are the packets that were going on the line, what was in them. So, and of course, embedded speed tests in each of the systems. So if you would ever want to run the speed test between multiple devices, that's available from here. Okay, and probably the last thing from the troubleshooting that would be useful for you if you would ever actually need to do this is the access to the shell of the device. So once again, we can click on the shell button. So I'm connected to the branch 11. If you will click on the shell button, we'll get the invitation to the Versa FlexFNF branch. And remotely, we can connect to it and do whatever we want. like to see interfaces that are connected there, or do some low-level troubleshooting or low-level settings if we would want to. Okay, now let's see in a little more details the configuration options. So as I mentioned before, everything in Versa is based on the templates. So we have templates that can be applied to multiple devices. Like for example, currently, let's see in the device groups what is being assigned. So we have 3 devices that are associated with the standalone full mesh template. So branch standalone full mesh, and okay, let's try to play with that template and do something. So let's go to the templates, device templates, and branch standalone full mesh template. This is the one that applied to multiple devices. If we want to do or make any change to this device, let's see, we want to make some changes to the to the interfaces, like simplest change of the description. So description testing for recording, and we click OK. So currently we changed the description of the interface in the template. It doesn't mean that the actual device will be changed. This time device will not be changed. And actually, to see the real-time changes on the device, let's open the management session to this branch. So here's the shell. Versa 1, 2, 3, and so here's the device. Here's the configuration, interfaces, VNI 0, 0. Here's the configuration of the interface 0, 0. And we just made a configuration change in the full mesh standalone template. No, actually, we made it for VNI 03. So let's see the configuration of VNI 03. So we can see only the IP address here, the VLAN number, and that it's enabled. But as you can see, when we did the change in the template, it was not assigned right away, or it wasn't applied to the device right away. So to actually make changes that we applied in the template, we would need to click on the commit template. And here, let's choose our template. So it's currently associated with these 2 branches. We can choose only one of them to synchronize, or maybe apply it to both of them. Let's click OK. And on the bottom right side, you can see the progress of template being applied to the devices. So we established connection to the device. And task successfully completed. Now, let's switch to the system. We can see that there was some change applied to the device using netconf. And if we will see the interface VNI 03, we can see that the new description is being added. Description testing for recording. So we just applied this change to both devices, to the branch 11 and branch 21. And if we would see what is the actual configuration of the branch 21, it's going to be the same description. And once again, it's in the templatized way. But what if you have multiple different templates? Let's say you have different interfaces, or you have different connection. One of the templates need to have OSPF connection. Another one doesn't have to have OSPF connection, but rather configure multicast or something else. But there is still something that needs to be common across multiple templates. In this case, Versa has the capability that is called Versa Service Templates. Service Templates allows you to create unified configuration to multiple devices at the same time. So we can have service templates, or specified service templates per user, per tenant. So for example, we can have specific traffic steering information that we can apply across all the devices. We can have specific next generation firewall settings, and so on and so forth. So for example, if we would go inside of the configuration here, of the steering configuration, the only thing that we'll see is the SD-WAN forwarding profiles and policies, how the traffic should be passed across multiple links. And these common Service template can be applied to multiple templates simultaneously. So if we have a global setting that needs to be applied to all the templates, we can create this global setting in one of the service templates associated with one or many templates and therefore apply it to multiple devices. Okay, and once again, if we would want to see in the real time what is happening with our devices, what is happening with specifically each of the branch devices that are currently available in our network, we can go to the device configuration. And here, let's see in the real time what is happening with the branch 21. The branch 21, here's the current throughput. Let's see the configuration. So in the configuration, we can see that the test for recording was added and configured on this device because in the device section, we retrieve information in real time. And if you would want to make any changes right away from the GUI, here's where you can do this in the devices configuration menu. So when you make changes in the templates, they are not being applied until you commit the template. If you're making change in the devices configuration, so let's say we want to make some change in the branch 11. So we'll go to the interfaces and let's add some other description to interface VNI01. And if we'll go to the CLI of this device, we can see that it was applied right away. And if we would want to see that the committed changes, show commit changes 0. So here's what was the last thing that was added or changed in this interface. So we added the description SDF, 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 SDF. Now, so once again, Versa has a full-featured routing capabilities, such as capabilities of static routing, of OSPF routing. So you can have OSPF configuration, so you can give different instance numbers, router IDs for your devices. You can configure various areas with the different network types. You can add different parameters in those networks, how they should be advertised. Should we have this network as the passive, so maybe advertise it to the OSPF network, but not establish connection to the other side. So all the configurations are very granular and you can always find a full featured configuration here. So if you want to change something in BGP, there are lots of different settings. Settings such as prefix list configurations, peering policy, peer groups, where we can configure different groups, where we can specify what is going to be our neighbors, what kind of BGP connection it is, um, how should we actually establish connection, what are the parameters for import, export, what should we allow or not allow, which of the prefixes, what are the actual neighbors, uh, and more granularly in each neighbor, similar parameters can be configured. So also in addition to this, we can specify how we advertise routes in this VRF, or how we redistribute this our routes to the other VRFs or to the other routing protocols. So these all can be configured on the VRF basis. Next, also things as IPSLA monitors are available to configure. VRP groups, we can configure very granularly them. You can configure DNS settings for, once again, various tenants or various settings. You can configure QoS parameters such as rewrite rules, what should be the policers, or what should be the schedulers, how should we shape interfaces. You can configure DHCP settings, what should be our DHCP server name, what should be the lease addresses, what should be the actual address pools of what IP addresses we are going to be giving to our customers, and so on and so forth. So very super granular information is available from the GUI, and you can make the changes based on the templates or the devices themselves. As well as on the second tab, you can make changes to the next generation firewall, or for example, to the SD-WAN policies, where you can define how the traffic should be forwarded, what should be the conditions of the forwarding. For example, we can say that forwarding profile SADF will use measurement of the utilization of the link, and if the For example, if we will assign multiple priorities to different links, let's say that we assign priority 1 to the internet and priority 2 to the MPLS, all the traffic is going to be passed over the internet link unless SLA is violated, which is predefined in this profile. So also here you can enable the forwarding error correction if you would want to. You can enable it to always work, or you can enable it only when SLA violated, to enable it only at those times. Here you can configure other things such as how soon, how often we should reevaluate our links, should we continuously evaluate them or not. And after that, we can actually identify the applications or sources and destinations to which we want to apply specific rules, how they are going to be handled. So this is SD-WAN rules. And currently, I just showed you how the SD-WAN rules work for the tenant 1. There's going to be a completely separate, independent set of rules for the tenant 2 as well, and for the Versa tenant. So each of the tenants will have their independent configuration. There is going to be independently encrypted, and which will be independently configurable. And the same is related to the next generation firewall configuration. So all the policies are going to be separate for the tenant 1 and tenant 2, and you can granularly configure them separately for each of them. Okay, okay. This finalizes our demo. In the next video, I'm going to show you in more details our analytics platform, how it works, and what cool features you can do using it. So in the meantime, I hope this was informative for you, and thank you for watching.